Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Friday, October 3rd, 2025. I'm Bobby Kuza. We are in the final weeks of the highly anticipated race for mayor, and Zohran Mamdani's rivals are sounding the alarm on his call to end gifted and talented programs in public schools. Our Dan Rivoli joins me now with more on tonight's top story. Good evening, Dan.
Hey, good evening, Bobby. So Mamdani has pitched his candidacy as a new kind of politics, but to Andrew Cuomo, it is just old ideas modeled after the de Blasio administration, whether it's being critical of the police, freezing rent, or, as we're seeing now, the Mamdani's call to eliminate gifted and talented programs in public schools.
My opponent is just a shorter de Blasio.
A shorter de Blasio? That's how Cuomo is portraying Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee for mayor. To Cuomo, the resemblance is particularly striking when it comes to gifted and talented programs. Mamdani announced this week he wants to get rid of them.
My opponent opposes the gifted talented programs, which is just like Mayor de Blasio.
Cuomo, with the help of a translator, told a room of Chinatown residents he'd double the program. Cuomo was in Chinatown to get the endorsement of the Asian Wave Alliance, a grassroots group. Yai-Tin Chu is the group's president.
I think Bill de Blasio 2.0 is something that will stick very well with the Chinese community.
Mamdani said he'd get rid of the kindergarten assessment.
I was asked a question about kindergarten and whether I thought that children at that young of an age should be separated on the basis of an assessment. And I said, no, I don't think that that should be the case for those kindergartners. Mamdani's
campaign had said he wants to keep it for third graders, but he was less clear when asked specifically about that on Friday.
But for third graders and other kids? My commitment is solely on the question of kindergartners.
As to Cuomo's jibe about Mamdani and de Blasio,
the remarks from Andrew Cuomo sound more like remarks from Donald Trump.
New York One was unable to reach de Blasio for comment. Curtis Sliwa, the Republican, said it's best to start tracking students early.
You got to do it in kindergarten. And we'd love to be able to say to Zohran, you don't understand because you never went through that process. You were privileged.
Cuomo also sought to tie Mamdani to de Blasio on the delayed and over-budget plan to build new jails to replace Rikers Island.
One of the jails slotted, one of the new jails is in Chinatown. And the location for that jail was always extremely problematic and didn't make any sense to me.
Cuomo, however, would not commit to canceling the Chinatown jail.
You have to reevaluate the whole plan.
Irving Lee, a Chinatown resident and property owner, was listening.
And I think he did a good job in terms of presenting possible solutions.
He opposed congestion pricing, which Cuomo signed into law, but liked his education policies.
We're concerned about the fact that it's going to be a lowering of standards.
He's still undecided about his vote. Now, Cuomo has called on Rikers Island to close, but he called the borough-based jails to replace it a mess. It's not feasible and unlikely to be accomplished. And he said that he wants to take a whole look at the plan and perhaps come up with a new plan so Rikers can finally close, Bobby.
So, Dan, that event he was having in Chinatown, he was actually announcing the endorsement or the support of some of these community groups, right? Which seems like obviously a positive development for Cuomo, who didn't really have a lot of endorsements post-primary loss when it seemed like a lot of groups were kind of fleeing to endorse Mamdani instead.
Right. So this is the Asian Wave Alliance. It's a grassroots group, and they are supportive of expanding gifted and talented. They are against getting rid of the test, the admissions test for the specialized high schools. That's something Mamdani has been critical of, and so they're supporting Cuomo on that. And I spoke to the head of this group about how different Cuomo has been from the primary versus now. They said the campaign seems more anxious to get Cuomo out, and talking specifically about local issues. She said she definitely noticed a difference and thought it was really potent that he was trying to tell people that Mamdani is very similar to Mayor de Blasio.
All right, Dan Rivoli, thank you for that report. We are also following developing news tonight. There are signs of a potential breakthrough in the war between Hamas and Israel. Hamas has agreed to release all remaining hostages, but the group said other elements require further consultations among Palestinians. Trump's peace plan proposal has been accepted by Israel and was welcomed internationally after he unveiled it alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier this week. The announcement by Hamas followed an ultimatum by the president that Hamas would have to accept his plan by Sunday evening or face retaliation. In a statement, President Donald Trump said, "I believe they are ready for a lasting peace. Israel must immediately stop the bombing of Gaza so that we can get the hostages out safely and quickly." He goes on to say this is about long-sought peace in the Middle East. Before we head to break, here's a preview of this week's Off Topic on Politics podcast, focused on Mayor Adams' decision to drop out of the mayor's race. What does his exit mean for the rest of the field, and how are the remaining candidates responding? Courtney Gross, Kelly Mena, and I talk about all that and how this move shapes Adams' legacy in this week's podcast. Here's part of the conversation.
I was going to say that one of the reasons I was also hearing that the decision was coming Monday or Tuesday was he didn't want to anger anybody that may be offering an opportunity to him after he's in office. And he didn't want him staying in the race to be something that they held over his head. Like, why didn't you step out sooner? We had told you that we wanted you to leave the race and you didn't. And he didn't want that to hamper his ability to get some type of opportunity. What that looks like, I haven't been able to nail down just yet.
Yeah, because so many businesses, and this is an aside, want him to step out. Business leaders, we should say, you know, billionaires in the city, millionaires in the city, want Adams to step aside to obviously help Andrew Cuomo and hurt Zoran Mamdani. But quickly, just wrapping up the Eric Adams section here, you know, what is his legacy? I mean, we talk about the headline of his obituary. I feel like it's just going to be corruption and, you know, the old school Tammany Hall-esque mayoralty.
I definitely...
Rats. And the rats do.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I definitely think corruption's going to be up there. I mean, this idea that you can bring in your own friends, people that have these close relationships to you, but aren't experienced in local government. I think this was the prime example of why you don't do that. It does not ever end well for anybody. And it just leads to further and further issues and an implosion of possibly your administration.
Speaking of friends, and bringing your friends into an administration quickly, there is some scandalous book coming out.
Yes.
Kelly, have you read it yet?
I haven't yet. It's called Political Humanity. It's an ex-lover of the mayor. Allegedly, this is all claims. Tell-all book. The mayor hired a woman named Jasmine Ray that he has known for many years. They had a relationship many years ago. This book is coming out this weekend. I'm looking forward to reading it very quickly. We'll see what's in there and what she had to say about the mayor.
I don't know if it's scandalous, though, right? I mean, is there anything scandalous about it? There's no
ex-lover writing a book about you. I don't know.
But there's no scandal. I mean, right? I mean,
wait. The scandal is that the scandal is that we've never heard from somebody that is so close to the mayor that has an intimate relationship talk to the media at all and like put something out proactively.
But is there a question about the propriety of him giving her a job at City Hall? Is that something that is like an ethical gray area? I don't know if that's really been raised.
You know, I don't think anybody's really questioned her about it. I think she's highly aware that she knows that her close relationship to the mayor got her this job, but I don't think that anybody necessarily questioned it to the high level. I mean, it's the director of sports and recreation. It's not like she was the budget director or something. You know, it was a job and a post that he made for her. But in the book, and I've heard from her personally, they never had a relationship while he was the mayor, that it ended before he ended up going to City Hall.
You can catch the full podcast episode wherever you get your podcast, and you can watch the full episode on New York One's YouTube channel. The episode will also air on New York One this Saturday night at 9:30 p.m., just after the You Decide podcast with Errol Lewis. It is time for a break. Coming up, the government shutdown enters day 3. We will bring you the latest from Washington, D.C. next. And later, they are not horsing around. The city's Transport Workers Union is fighting to keep the horse carriage industry alive in the wake of the mayor's proposal to ban the industry. We will be joined by the union's head to break it all down. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost. And that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure. Why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You're done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. There has been no breakthrough on Capitol Hill to end the government shutdown as the Senate again failed to pass legislation that would provide the funding to restart services and pay federal workers. National political reporter Evan Kozlov joins me now from Washington, D.C. with the very latest. Good evening, Evan.
Well, hi there, Bobby. Yes, the House was out of session today, which means that all the action was once again in the Senate, where you said it. They held 2 votes on funding measures, one backed by the GOP and one backed by Democrats. And just like we saw all week, both of those measures fell short. The failed votes ensure that this shutdown will continue through the weekend, as food banks, especially those in the D.C. region, are bracing for what could be an influx of federal workers in need, who will miss paychecks if this shutdown drags on.
Families who live paycheck to paycheck, only have maybe 2 weeks to a month to a little more than a month worth of savings.
And this is not just a problem for the D.C. region. According to the Partnership for Public Service, 80% of the roughly 2 million federal workers are based outside of the D.C. area. That includes over 130,000 federal workers in California, over 113,000 in Texas, and nearly 85,000 workers in Florida.
These are real people. They're more stressed now than I've ever seen them.
Everett Kelly heads the American Federation of Government Employees, which represents over 800,000 federal and D.C. workers.
When you start talking, 5 or 6 days without pay, they're going to feel that. This shutdown need to end, and it need to end now.
Welcome to day 3 of the Democrat shutdown.
All as Republicans continue to blame Democrats for refusing to support GOP-backed legislation that would fund the government at mostly current levels into late November, allowing the restoration of government services that were halted when the shutdown began on Wednesday.
No policy writers, no gimmicks, nothing in here that benefits Republicans. This is a straight-up 7-week funding resolution.
But Democrats are calling for concessions on health care, including an extension of Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies set to expire later this year.
This is about the health care of everyday Americans. They continue to try to confuse the issue. We're fighting for hard-working American taxpayers.
Democrats have been quick to point to new polling from the nonpartisan healthcare policy group KFF, which found 80% of Americans, including nearly 6 out of 10 Republicans, support extending these enhanced subsidies. Now, there are some attempts at negotiations by some moderate members of both parties. We spoke with one of them, that's Senator Jeanne Shaheen from New Hampshire, a moderate Democrat, who said that there are some discussions underway to try and find an off-ramp deal that might include something on these subsidies. But at this point, Bobby, no breakthroughs, and that means that the shutdown continues.
So, Evan, we see these votes happening in the Senate, but they're not voting on some newly negotiated package, right? That's just Republicans putting forth the same resolution that they had put up for a vote previously, right? So we're not seeing any real progress up to this point.
Yeah, it's sort of been deja vu, Groundhog Day here on Capitol Hill, because it's the same two funding measures that we've seen voted on every single day. And you could kind of look at the schedule to see just how long this is going to last. You know, both the House and the Senate are going to be out of session this weekend, so it's going to extend into next week, and it could last a lot longer than that. Listen to this. The House just announced that they're not planning to be back until October 13th. That's 2 Mondays from now. So if that is what they end up doing, if the House doesn't come back, that basically means that the Senate Democrats will have to essentially take it or leave it with that House version, and if they don't, that means the shutdown would last until mid-October.
All right, Evan Kozlov in Washington, D.C., thank you. After initially cutting counterterrorism funding to New York earlier this week, the Trump administration reversed course today. State and local officials had been urging the president to restore the funds, arguing it left the city vulnerable to attacks. Our Kelly Mena joins us now with more on that story. Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Bobby. And obviously, New York lawmakers hailing this as a big win. There's nothing that brings New York Republicans and Democrats together more than public safety.
I want to begin with what I consider to be some very good news.
Top New York leaders declared victory, arguing that their pressure reversed the Trump administration's plan to slash nearly $200 million from the state's counterterrorism operations.
This outcome is a recognition that New York remains the #1 terrorist target in the world, and that the NYPD plays a central role in protecting this city from those threats.
The news comes as a bipartisan group of city and state leaders had been urging President Donald Trump to restore the funding, saying without it, the city was being left exposed. Governor Kathy Hochul on Friday claimed credit after directly phoning Trump requesting he reconsider. In a statement, Hochul called the news a victory for public safety and for every New Yorker who depends on our brave law enforcement and first responders to keep our state secure. Even Republicans like Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis got involved in the effort. She also applauded the news. The mayor reacting in a statement, saying these resources are essential for law enforcement to prevent attacks and protect our city, and we are proud that our advocacy paid off and that politics were set aside to deliver the protection New Yorkers deserve. The reversal comes days after the NYPD discovered the loss, which triggered a lawsuit from the state's top lawyer, New York Attorney General Letitia James.
After 9/11, I can think of no other state that is facing the risk than New York.
The funding will go toward resources like bomb squad technicians, intelligence analysts, camera systems, and training for active shooter attacks.
And the police commissioner earlier this week said that since 9/11, the city has experienced about 70 terrorist plots or other violent plots here in the city that they've been able to foil, Bobby.
So do we know what happened here? Like, did this rise to the level of President Trump making a decision, or how was it that the federal government came to reverse this? Do we know any window into how this took place?
We know a little bit about it. There has been some reporting in the New York Times. It was President Trump that made that final decision to reverse the cuts after it was brought up to his attention. He didn't know that it happened. These cuts actually first were taken from the funding budget over the weekend, not during the week. It was part of a different grant under FEMA. And because of the way that funding works, the grants are in different silos, and it looks like maybe one agency made a decision without telling the other. And so once it finally trickled down, they realized that it actually was going to affect the NYPD and counterterrorism. But as we know, the city, when it comes to public safety, Republicans and Democrats are like, think that keeping New Yorkers safe is very big importance. It's critical funding for them. And really, everybody came together. The governor, the mayor, the police commissioner, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis to really call the president directly and say these funds need to be there. You can't cut them from us because they are basically defunding the police, Bobby.
All right. Thank you so much, Kelly Mena. It is time now for a break. Coming up, the Supreme Court returns for a new term on Monday. We will bring you a preview from Washington, D.C. next. Stay with us.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the polls.
Stay with Spectrum News New York 1 for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
It's only a game. It's only a little rivalry. It's only a ritual.
When I come home late
and a few generations.
You're always there.
And only Spectrum TV includes all your favorite streaming apps with live TV at no extra cost. It's only a game. It's only everything.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York 1 to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first, stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. The Supreme Court is back for a new session on Monday. The High Court will hear cases on contentious issues ranging from vote counting to redistricting to the participation of transgender athletes in school sports. Spectrum News political reporter Cassie Semyon has more in this report.
The Supreme Court returns Monday to begin hearing cases for the 2025-2026 term. One of the biggest cases on the docket is whether President Donald Trump has the legal authority to issue sweeping tariffs on hundreds of countries.
Starting tomorrow, the United States will implement reciprocal tariffs on other nations.
While multiple lower courts have ruled the tariffs unlawful, they're still temporarily in place as the court considers the issue. The Supreme Court is fast-tracking the case and plans to hear it in early November. The High Court will also hear cases pertaining to several hot-button issues, such as whether a law banning conversion therapy violates free speech protected by the First Amendment, whether federal candidates can challenge mail-in ballots counted 2 weeks after Election Day, whether to overturn Hawaii's strict regulations on where people can carry guns, whether the Voting Rights Act is a safeguard against racial gerrymandering in Louisiana. And the court will hear 2 cases about the participation of transgender athletes in sports.
For a good deal of time, the court has, I think, kind of been pushing the can down the road, not taking up the merits of these big transgender cases. This term, the court is going to have to face those questions head on.
Jessica Levinson, a constitutional law expert, says while this is a solidly conservative court, that doesn't mean every case will be a layup for those on the right.
The court is really grappling with the president's authority.
She'll be watching how the court rules on both matters of presidential authority within the executive branch and on broader balance of power issues. Although the official term begins next week, the Supreme Court could add cases via the emergency docket, a process that allows for the court to hear cases immediately. Late last month, the administration called on the Supreme Court once again to take up the question of birthright citizenship.
Birthright. That's a big one.
The president signed an order on his first day in office to end the guarantee of citizenship to anyone born in the country. But it's faced legal challenges. Solicitor General John Sauer wrote in part that, quote, the lower court's decision invalidated a policy of prime importance to the president and his administration in a manner that undermines our border security. Levinson says she expects an active emergency docket to remain simply by virtue of the number of executive orders signed by President Trump. It's unclear if the high court will take up the question of birthright citizenship this term, but if they do, Levinson says it will be an uphill battle for the Trump administration. Outside the Supreme Court, Cassie Simeon, Spectrum News.
It is time for a break. Coming up, we will turn to the debate over horse-drawn carriages in the city. I'll talk it over with the head of the Transport Workers Union next. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Burke.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately, in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. The city's largest transportation union is sounding the alarm over Mayor Adams' proposal to ban horse-drawn carriage rides in the city. The issue has long been a point of contention, with animal rights activists pointing to incidents where carriage horses have been injured. But the Transport Workers Union says a ban would bring an end to a world-famous tradition and result in job losses. The union launched a $1 million ad campaign pushing back on the mayor. And joining me now to break this all down is the international president of TWU, John Samuelson. He is the former head of Local 100 here in the city. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bobby.
So before we get into the politics of all this, just in terms of the policy debate, I mean, there have been incidents, right, where horses broke loose. There have been some accidents. There have been horses that collapsed in the street. There is some health and safety risk with the industry, right, or is there not?
No, there's not. That one horse has broken loose, and the horse broke loose because a Parks Department truck encroached behind it in a way that was inappropriate. There were 2 tragic incidents where horses passed away, but they were not related to pulling the carriages. The horses were sick, and they died of natural causes, and it's a tragedy. And of course, there were nobody more heartbroken over that than the carriage drivers themselves.
So there, from your perspective, what do you say to the animal rights activists who say that this is an industry where horses are treated inhumanely?
So the so-called animal rights activists, and we'll get into that in a second, that's a political opinion on their part, strictly political. The equine veterinarians and equine medical professionals have consistently and steadfastly given a medical assessment that the horses are well treated, they're not at all mistreated, and that the industry is humane. Consistently. The animal rights people that are funded by, NICLAS was founded by Manhattan real estate developers. They're funded by Manhattan real estate developers, have a political opinion that's driven by money. It's driven by outside money and a desire to develop the stables into condominium towers and, and develop the real estate. It has nothing to do with care about horses.
So let me ask you about the mayor's role in all this, because I don't remember the mayor talking about the horse carriages his first almost 4 years in office, and then just a few weeks ago he came out and proposed a ban. Did you have a sense that this was coming, or were you as surprised as many of the rest of us?
Not at all. It's an absolute blindside by Eric Adams, a stab in the back to TW Local 100, to me personally. Eric Adams committed to me personally, to the president of TW Local 100, to the workforce, that he would support these jobs. Eric Adams knows that the horses are treated humanely. The problem is that he sold out. He sold out to money. He sold out to big money donors. He sold out to this unholy alliance of Manhattan real estate and extremely wealthy social progressives.
So the mayor, in the time since then, has obviously dropped his bid for re-election. You guys have also launched this ad campaign going after the mayor. So, there's a lot going on. I almost wonder why go after the mayor, given the fact that even a few weeks ago, his re-election chances seemed pretty dim, right? And also the chances of him actually getting this passed by the council before he leaves office at the end of the year are pretty slim as well, right?
Yeah, well, we initially launched a campaign against the mayor because when you're betrayed by a friend and an ally, next level retaliation is necessary by the Transport Workers Union, and everybody should remember that.
So what happens now? Because we know that the 3 remaining candidates for mayor have talked about supporting a ban. We don't know about the next city council speaker, right? We don't know who the next city council speaker will be. But how do you approach this going forward, not knowing what's going to happen after January?
Yeah, I don't know that every mayoral candidate has spoken about supporting a ban. I don't know that to be true. I've heard, of course, Curtis Lee would talk about that. I've heard Cuomo jump on the bandwagon. The truth is he doesn't give a rat's ass about the horses. Come January, the horses will be the least important thing on his agenda. He said it because everybody else was saying it. And I know Zoran answered a question on an NICLAS questionnaire months before he thought he was going to win the Democratic primary. We've had conversations with Zoran, and I believe him to be, regardless of what anybody thinks of his politics, you can agree, you can disagree, and I understand reasons why people would agree and disagree. Regardless of anything, I think he's the most honest candidate in the race, and he has committed that the TW will be a stakeholder in those conversations going forward. And we trust him at his word. The industry is not inhumane. We expect that Zoran will come to the stable, see for himself, talk to veterinary experts, equine experts, and we're going to hold them to that. There's 170 jobs at stake. They're largely immigrant jobs. Zoran has seen this before in the taxi industry. The circumstances are very, very similar, and we do not believe that he will come into office, make a blind decision, listening to the politics of the so-called animal rights experts and blindly try to do away with the industry. We don't think he'll do it. We think he'll stand with the workers.
So in your conversations with Mamdani, he's still open-minded? He doesn't seem like he's decided in favor of a ban?
Oh, he certainly has not made commitments to us that he won't do it.
Right.
And we understand that he has concerns about the industry, and we take those concerns seriously. We have urged him to establish a panel of medical experts to get to the bottom of this once and for all, to disprove the so-called animal rights experts once and for all, to stop measuring things on by political opinion, and let's get to a medical assessment. That's what we want.
You know, the proposal from the mayor, which of course doesn't really go anywhere unless the city council goes along with it, but he has committed to try to find work for some of the carriage horse drivers who would be put out of work by a horse carriage ban, potentially these electric carriages that have been talked about. Does that not address some of the concerns about job losses?
No, not at all. The provisions that he's talking about don't exist in the bill at the city council. And by the way, the electric carriages, I'm glad you brought it up, because the animal rights activists, so-called animal rights activists, fall into two categories. They either want to develop the stables into the lucrative Manhattan stables, or they want to monetize the electric cars that they want to replace the horses with. That's what the animal rights activists are. They have an angle on everything. They either want to get rich off Manhattan real estate where the stables are, or they want to make money selling the electric cars to the people that they want to replace the horses. So that's their angle. Their angle is not animal rights. So, and by the way, the provision at the city council, it has no just transition for the workers in it. It's very vague language. We've seen vague language like this before. That type of vague language is put into legislation when legislators like Bob Holden want to do nothing for workers. So that's what he's trying to accomplish.
So TW, as I understand it, did not endorse a candidate for mayor in the June primary. How do you size up the race now? Will TWU potentially endorse a candidate in the general election?
So the international TWU does not generally endorse in local races. We have several locals in New York City. Those discussions are underway. The horse and carriage industry is very important to us as a national union. The conversations are underway. I want to point out one more thing. Aqueduct Racetrack. Horses die at Aqueduct Racetrack of exertion. They're whipped right on television. Not one of the signatories on that bill on the city council and not one of the animal rights activists have conversations about Aqueduct. It's right in Bob Holden's backyard. It demonstrates the hypocrisy and the inconsistency of the so-called animal rights activists and those on the city council that signed on to that bill. And there's a reason for that. Aqueduct, there's no expensive Manhattan real estate there, and there's no chance to monetize electric carriages to replace the racehorses at Aqueduct. So they don't care about Aqueduct, where horses actually do die from exertion. Horses are put out of their misery at Aqueduct all the time, but nobody says peep about it because there's not money to be made there by rich donors.
All right, John Samuelson, we are going to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in and joining us.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, we are going to turn back to the race for mayor when I'm joined by two top reporters in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Stay with us.
The next downtown local 6 train to Brooklyn Bridge City Hall will arrive in 2 minutes.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer.
I'm so honored to be a meteorologist here at New York One because as a Brooklyn kid, this is the station that I grew up watching.
Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our weather on the ones. Watch the New York One weather experts on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything. Movies, series, sports, reality, news.
Here's a look at today's top stories.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
And even more of your favorites with live TV. Stream across your devices and enjoy anywhere.
See you later.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
If I had to do it again, I would fight for New York again. And yet, despite all we've achieved, I cannot continue.
History is going to judge him and the administration very, very well.
Once again, Eric Adams has made a decision with them in mind and not working people.
Eric Adams, one and done. We knew that was going to happen.
Donald Trump and his billionaire donors can determine the actions of Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, but they can't dictate the results of this election.
This race is going to come down to me and Mr. Mamdani.
Eric Adams' record and the ways in which it has priced out so many New Yorkers, we must remember that that is Andrew Cuomo's agenda.
I just hope he's at peace with his decision.
Democrats want to avert this crisis, but Republicans tried to bully us.
All the pressure should be on the 44 Democrats who were dug in to try to pander to the far left corner of their base.
Instead of exercising that power, they literally bowed down to Donald Trump.
You know, my opponent is just a shorter de Blasio.
The remarks from Andrew Cuomo sound more like remarks from Donald Trump. To focus on the appearance of a politician is to do disservice to the people of the city.
It's not just what you don't do, it's what you do. You need an answer to Rikers.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was a look back at some of the week's top political stories, including the candidates for mayor reacting to Eric Adams' decision to quit the race. Joining me now to discuss this and more are two top journalists in our Friday Reporters Roundtable. Katie Honan is a reporter for the nonprofit news organization The City and a co-host of the FAQ NYC podcast, and Joe Anuda covers City Hall for Politico New York. Thank you both for being here. It seems like ages since Eric Adams dropped out of the race, but in fact, it's only been 5 days.
No.
So let's talk about how this has, if and how we've seen this sort of reshape the race in the past 5 days. And Joe, I'll start with you. I mean, the conventional wisdom was that this was going to help Andrew Cuomo. Have we seen that begin to happen over these past few days?
I don't think so. I mean, I think there's a couple caveats there. One, the mayor was polling below 10%, so he didn't have that many votes to disperse around to candidates. Two, his name's still going to be on the ballot. There's some slice of his supporters who are still going to vote for him, even though he has stopped campaigning. And I just don't think there's necessarily a guarantee that all those votes automatically go to Andrew Cuomo. The mayor spent months bashing Cuomo. In some cases, he went after Cuomo harder than he went after the Democratic nominee. So I don't think we're automatically seeing this, transfer over to him. I think Cuomo will have to work very hard to sort of make this an advantage to him going forward.
Is this a shot in the arm for Cuomo?
I don't think it's the shot that they need to defeat or to get ahead of Mamdani in the polls. I think what Joe said is true. Eric Adams didn't have that much support if you look at the polls to begin with. I think it might actually help a Curtis Lewa more. And I thought today, Frank Carone, former campaign advisor, whatever his role was in Adams's campaign, put a video out today saying this guy is a snake and he's a liar, and he called him a, quote, psycho. And I think that seemed to come from a place of fear that, oh, a lot of these people who are supporting Adams maybe now are going to back Curtis Lewa. But maybe we'll see the filings released today. If Cuomo did say he got more donations after Adams dropped out, we'll see from who.
Well, it's interesting that Frank Carone immediately came out in support of Cuomo, and we saw Randy Mastro, first deputy mayor, come out in support of Cuomo. So then there's the question of what the mayor's going to do, right? Is he going to come out and publicly support Andrew Cuomo a month after he came out at Gracie Mansion and called him a snake and a liar and a spoiled child and all these other names?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting if that happens because of all the things he said about Cuomo. I mean, this happens a lot in politics when someone's running against someone, they say like the meanest things on earth about them and then turn around and endorse him. But I think in this case, it seems so personal with the mayor. I think him turning around and endorsing Cuomo, I don't know, it just won't have the same sincerity to it, I think, because of how contentious their relationship was during, the race so far.
Do you think that Curtis Lewa is starting to get any traction? I mean, it feels sort of like he's maybe getting a little bit more oxygen. Part of that may just be a function of the fact that there's fewer candidates, right? And there's only so many reporters to go around. So the fewer candidates there are in the race, the more media attention each of them is going to get.
To me, the polls have been very stagnant. I think we've seen a race where, because it's been so contentious, I think it's been on the airwaves, more New Yorkers are paying attention. And I think if you look at the polls, there's very few people that are undecided. So there's not a lot of wiggle room. I think, that for the dynamics to really change in any meaningful way going forward, I think Cuomo you know, has to really make some sort of case to peel supporters off of, you know, Mamdani that I think is going to be difficult, but I don't necessarily see anyone surging or going down. To me, it seems very stagnant at this point for that reason.
Right. And what about Mamdani? He was on his heels a little bit this week when he came out and said he would scale back the Gifted and Talented program. He also hasn't really been clear on mayoral control of schools. So, I mean, we see Andrew Cuomo, of course, just continuing to direct his fire at Mamdani. And now that Eric Adams is out of the race, nobody has to worry about talking about him anymore.
Yeah, Mamdani's answers on his education platform have been really short. There's not been much to look at for his education plan. And it was revealed in a New York Times questionnaire that he would scale back Gifted and Talented. He had to kind of correct or amend his answer after the story came out. There's some confusion that he wanted to maybe scrap it all together, but it's just what Bill de Blasio proposed as he was leaving office 4 years ago. So there's some confusion. I think the criticism of Mamdani that we heard with Cuomo today, calling him a shorter Bill de Blasio, is here's someone who went to private school and then went to a specialized high school. What you had with Bill de Blasio was changing his district's G&T program when his kids benefited from it. So there's a hypocrisy that can get pointed out there. But like you said, Cuomo's going to go after Mamdani for anything. You know, he spent weeks going after his rent-stabilized apartment. Now he shifted to this. And I mean, but Mamdani's still doing really well in the polls. And now with TV ads and stuff, I don't know how much things will change.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. I will have much more to talk about with these reporters in just a minute. Stay with us.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 on Spectrum News New York 1. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
My name is Gail, and we are in my showroom for Floor's Fire Design House. Getting Spectrum set up for my business was extremely smooth. They had it set up within an hour, and I was online and ready to go and run my business. Spectrum helps me stay online. You know, I have to be able to be online at 5 a.m. when the market's open. Without Spectrum, it wouldn't be possible.
Get up to 4 months free when you bundle award-winning internet. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. I'm once again joined by my Reporters Roundtable, Katie Honan of The City and Joe Anuda of Politico. So, Joe, you had a story this week about Mamdani, who is leading in all the polls, but is consistently falling shy of 50%, right? So it doesn't look at this rate like he's going to get a majority of voters in November. So what does that mean for whether he has a mandate from voters, or is there any practical impact?
I mean, I think there is, you know, he's going to have to go to Albany. He's going to be dealing with the city council. If you don't get at least half, I think it makes it harder to credibly say, I'm speaking on behalf of all 8.5 million New Yorkers. Someone could say, well, most people actually wanted someone else. So I do think it matters, but I think how it matters for him is very unique, because I think he's, as we've seen, sort of a politician unlike any we've seen in a long time, and I think he has this very fervent base who supports him, and I think that's a very potent political weapon. So even though he might be, you know, coming in under 50%, I think he has a very powerful tool to, when he's working with other elected officials, to, you know, he has this sort of army behind him. And the campaign tells me, you know, they're working assiduously to register new voters and remind, you know, that the polls in the primary didn't capture that energy. And so they're hoping to have a repeat of that in November, and that he will get over half.
Let's talk about Mayor Adams and his legacy now that we know for sure that he's going to be a one-term mayor. I mean, in that video that he put out last Sunday, he talked about lowering crime and building affordable housing and raising test scores. But I have to think in the future, when historians look back on the Adams mayoralty, his name is going to be attached to the federal corruption indictment, and this, you know, this whole cloud of controversy and corruption scandals surrounding his administration, right?
I think now it's a complicated legacy. You have this, it's like a stunning contrast. Someone who was the former cop who ran on a public safety message and, you know, cared a lot about crime, but he had 4 police commissioners. He was arrested and indicted. Of course, that was dropped out by DOJ, by Trump's DOJ, but his top aide has now had 5 indictments. There was a lot of that controversy swirling around him. But I think when it comes to the rezonings that are really significant and the attempts to build more housing, particularly affordable housing, when I look at Eric Adams as the person, he's an incredibly charismatic, skilled politician. Maybe he was loyal to a fault, as we saw, and that was something that was useful to him. I was rewatching the videos from primary night 2021, and it's like a who's who. It's like that New York Magazine cover. Everyone on stage with him, these are the people who supported him, but in some ways, these are the people that dragged him down when they were not even alleged, you know, they were allegedly engaging in massive corruption, turning City Hall into like an ATM for themselves. So that's unfortunately, that was on him, because that's what the people he kept around him.
What's your take on the Adams legacy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think there's certainly things you can point to. I think, you know, if you look at the polling again, I think the concerns about crime are going down, and I think certain types of violent crime have turned the peak. They're still higher than when he took office. I think, you know, they did a lot with sanitation and containerizing garbage, but there's just no way you can separate that, like, from the indictments and just the kind of very chaotic City Hall governance that we saw. His whole inner circle was basically hollowed out by FBI raids. He had mass resignations in protests of his deputy mayors, and there's just no way you're going to be able to peel those two apart. Like, they're always, I think, going to be part of his legacy.
And the migrant crisis. I feel like we've all forgotten about the migrant crisis, which kind of defined the first, like, I don't know, 3 years in office prior to the to his phones being seized and then later being indicted. And that, I think, is when his approval numbers really started to take a turn, because there was no easy way to deal with these tens of thousands of migrants that were pouring into the city.
Yeah, and that was not of his own doing. You know, he was right that the federal government wasn't supporting the city enough and just offering the financial support and what to do with people. The other thing about the mayor is he's such a larger-than-life character, and he has this self-mythology about who he is, yet there's still so much that we don't know about him. Like, we still don't know on any given night where he sleeps. And that's not a joke, that's a true, you know, I know Joe and his colleagues broke that back in where he lives back during the campaign, but that's what's always been fascinating.
We learned about his personal life a little bit this week,
yes,
right? With the release of this memoir from a woman who'd had an ex-girlfriend. It didn't really seem like there was much of a scandal in this memoir that she wrote, but just kind of a window into his personal life.
The book Political Humanity, it's coming out this weekend. I pre-ordered it. But I didn't get an advance copy like some of the other reporters. But I think that is an example, too. Why did the mayor appoint an ex-girlfriend to this high-up mayoral position? You know, and there were questions even before this book came out of what does this office do? There was a good WNBC story about she also got contracts for an after-school center, a daycare center that she owned. And I think I and other people had written about, to staff that office, they took budget lines away from the Parks Department, which is a completely underfunded agency that's also really necessary. But I don't know how much dirt will be in this political humanity book. A lot of it's probably been revealed all week in this week-long PR blitz she's done. But it's an interesting story on the Maybe there'll be more. I want to read a book from Tracy Collins, his partner.
I just feel like he can't, nothing is normal with this mayor, and so he can't even suspend his campaign normally. Of course, there's a tell-all book about some romantic relationship from someone who was working in City Hall.
We only have about a minute left, but talk just really briefly about his relationship with the media. And Joe, I'll let you have the last word here. I mean, it started out kind of friendly, right? There's always this like good-natured ribbing with the press, and things went very, very south by the end.
I mean, you know, if you listen to, really this has been a theme, I mean, I would say over the last couple of years, but really he's hammered this home more recently. He blames the media for undermining his campaign. He even said recently that he felt like he was running against the media. And I think this is, you know, what he doesn't like about what we cover is largely self-inflicted wounds. I mean, we're not the ones who, you know, had to go through 4 commissioners in the police department. We just reported on it. And I think he takes umbrage at a lot of that and feels like his wins are not covered. But I think, you know, City of Yes, for example, was covered extensively. We do cover the city very broadly.
Katie, I should actually let you have the last word, because I feel like the mayor has particular animus towards you.
No, really? I don't. Back me up.
He said something to you this week when you...
Well, it was funny. I saw him as he was leaving. I think we no longer
as he was
have
leaving an event.
No, leaving City Hall. I don't know how I spotted him when I was leaving, myself and 2 other reporters.
Just have a sixth sense.
I do seem to have a sixth sense for when he's leaving, and we just asked him questions about, I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to be asked about an ex, my best friend, Frank Carone, maybe undermining my campaign or all these other allegations. But I think the root of it is Eric Adams, in his self-mythologizing of himself, he couldn't understand a story about him that was not just, this is the world's greatest mayor. You even see in the press release, I think all the housing press releases have to say, most pro-housing administration in history. It feels a little bit like propaganda. When you have a unified press, like I think this press corps is, we are friends and we help each other out in covering people who are powerful. I think his own staff also hurt some of the press relations. They didn't seem to have a basic understanding of how the press worked, and it worked against them. You know, but I don't have personal animus towards him.
All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. Katie Hoan and Joe Anuda, thank you both for joining us, and that is going to do it for tonight's show. Stay tuned for another episode of our weekly national political show, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, at 9 o'clock tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great weekend. We will see you the next time on Inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You done with the sports section?
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
My name is Gail, and we are in my showroom for Florist Fire Design House. We are a full production wedding and event company that focuses on florals. Getting Spectrum set up for my business was extremely smooth. They were here the same day, had it set up within an hour, and I was online and ready to go and run my business. You know, I have to be able to be online at 5 a.m. when the market's open. And if I'm contacting a merchant via email or placing an order online, without Spectrum, it wouldn't be possible.
One more row.
Spectrum is reliable, they're committed, they're fast, and they really take care of me as a business owner. Last year, when the really bad hurricane came through, our internet stayed the entire time. One of the businesses down the street, she was like, wait a minute, how are you still online? And I was like, Spectrum, baby. You gotta get Spectrum.
Get award-winning internet for your business. Up to 4 months free when bundled. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus,